Well, hello everyone. Hope you're having a good evening and welcome to Uncivil Law. We are here to try to address the issue of Article 3 standing. As I'm sure all of you are well aware at this point, the Supreme Court denied the right of Texas to have its case heard, where it challenged the results in Pennsylvania and other states on the basis of standing. The Supreme Court said there was no standing for Texas to bring its complaint in original jurisdiction before the U.S. Supreme Court. And there are people, including Robert Barnes, who thinks that standing is a completely made-up concept by the courts and doesn't have a basis in law. So we're here to discuss the issue of standing and its roots or lack thereof in the constitutional text, because a lot of people are like, I've looked at Article 3 and I can't find standing mentioned anywhere. And that's true, you can't find the word standing. Then the question becomes whether or not the concept is baked into words like cases or controversies, which of course Article 3 does mention. So when it says that the Supreme Court can only hear cases and controversies, and then goes on to define exactly what kinds of cases and controversies maybe standing is built into the concept of cases and controversies. So we're here to deal with standing and what it is and what is not. So, first thing to note is there has been more than a little bit of ink spilled on this issue in law reviews. For those of you who are not familiar, law review is the place where most of the academic work in the law goes. The professional journals of law is in law reviews, and people, including judges, including professors, including law students, write law review articles, and being on law review is considered to be a major deal. I myself was editor of the intellectual property law review at my law review at my law school, considered to be a fairly big deal. So this is how the academic side of law gets done, is on the law reviews. And I thought we could start with reading one law review from one name that some people who have some loyalty to originalism might like. So I thought we could read some words from some guy named Scalia, who wrote some thoughts on why standing was a good idea. Now, this was written when he was still a judge for the Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit before he got elevated to the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is comparatively earlier in his history, I guess. It depends on your point of view. But we can read some thoughts from Scalia, who at least thought that there was some good stuff. And Scalia, of course, like Thomas, is thought of as a hardcore originalist and very loyal to the concept of originalism. So I thought, where can we find a standing in the Article 3 text? I thought, maybe we could start with Justice Scalia, and we could read some of his thoughts on the subject. So just a couple things that I highlighted that he said on this issue. So this is entitled The Doctrine of Standing as Essential Element of the Separation of Powers, and a few things that I highlighted. The principle of separation of powers was set forth in the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts well before it found its way into the federal document. My thesis is that the judicial doctrine of standing is a crucial and inseparable element of that principle, whose disregard will inevitably produce, as it has in the past few decades, an over-judicialization of the process of self-governance. More specifically, I suggest the courts need to accord greater weight than they have in recent times to the traditional requirement that the plaintiff's alleged injury be a particularized one, which sets him apart from the citizenry at large. And excuse me real quick while I adjust the margins so that you can see the entire text, because that would probably be good. The Supreme Court has described standing as a sufficient stake in an otherwise justiciable controversy to obtain judicial resolution of that controversy. In more pedestrian terms, it is an answer to the very first question that sometimes rudely is asked when one person complains of another's actions: what is it to you? Yeah, standing is the what is it to you doctrine. There is no case or controversy within the meaning of Article 3, he continues. The reasoning has gone when there are no adverse parties with a personal interest in the matter. In Federalist number 48, describing why the legislature is the most dangerous branch, Madison says, "It is not unfrequently a question of real nicety in legislative bodies whether the operation of a particular measure will or will not extend beyond the legislative sphere. On the other side, the executive power being restrained within a narrow compass and being more simple in its nature, and the judiciary being described by the landmarks still less uncertain, projects of usurpation by either of those departments that will immediately betray and defeat themselves." And so that gives you a little bit of the sense of what Scalia was talking about and his views on why originalism requires the concept of standing in Article 3. So who says that that standing is Article 3? Well, Justice Scalia does, for a start. And in the description of the video below, I have provided several links to several other law reviews on both sides of this issue. I did a bit of research and tried to pull what I thought were the most interesting law reviews on this issue. So for those of you who really, really, really want to know the answer to, is Article 3, does it describe standing? You can read in the description below. I think I provide 7 or 8 different law review articles that try to go into a fairly expansive discussion of historical terms of the view of whether or not standing was merely invented in the 1920s or whether or not it has more ancient antecedents. I think you can definitely see some of the antecedents in the concepts of legal concepts like privity, which is the same kind of issue of being close enough to the action for it to matter. Privity being more of a concept of contract law, but also a more general concept as well that deals with your closeness to the situation and your ability to get standing. So let's talk a little bit about what standing is in terms of its modern doctrine, or how it is modernly thought of, and the limitations thereof. So to have standing, you need 3 core elements, and I put that in the description as well. You need to have an injury, it needs to be caused by somebody, and there needs to be redressability. So there has to be an injury, or sometimes what's called injury in fact. Something bad has to have happened. It has to have been caused by somebody else, the person you're suing. So something bad has happened to you by the person you're suing, and there has to be something the court can do about it. So those are the 3 elements of standing. You've been had a harm, it's caused by the person you're suing, and the court can do something about it. And not all things have judicial remedies. And sometimes there's nothing the court can do about it, either because there's just literally nothing the court can do about it, the harm is gone, there's no redressability possible, or because it's not authorized by statute, or because it's too far gone, or a whole bunch of reasons. Or the more common one is because it's a political question. It's committed to one of the political branches. And then there is also this idea of it has to be a particularized injury, an injury to you in particular, as opposed to people at large. And this is the one that is tripping up a lot of these lawsuits that were related to the election. Now, it's worthy of mention, because I think a lot of people are confused by this, that a lot of people seem to think that all the lawsuits were dismissed for lack of standing. And that's not true. Not all of them were dismissed for lack of standing. A lot of them were dismissed for lack of standing, but not all of them. Some of them were dismissed for other reasons, such as laches. And laches is a very old idea in common law. That's definitely not a modern concept. Or mootness, or that's too old, or ripeness. It wasn't ripe when it was brought. And so there are other legal concepts, and in at least one case that I'm aware of, because of some weighing of the comparative evidence. If you're on an injunction, for example, where a lot of these things we're looking to enjoin to stop certification or to stop a count or require someone to do something, you're on an injunction and you're under a classic 4-part standard, which is, what is your likelihood of winning? What is your likelihood of winning? What is the harm to you? What is the harm to the other side? And what is the harm to the public at large? That's your standard 4-part test. And so in at least one case I'm aware of, the court looked at the comparative evidence, found the evidence from the people who were complaining to be very weak in their affidavits, found the evidence from the government to be comparatively strong, and felt that the likelihood on the merits element did not pass the threshold for a injunction. On the comparative weighting. So not all of them were dismissed for standing. The Pennsylvania case, or the Texas case versus Trump, or the Texas case versus Pennsylvania, I should say, was of course dismissed for standing, but not all these have been. In fact, some cases have actually gone into the merits to varying degrees and found the merits to be wanting for a whole bunch of reasons. But these are the concept of standing goes back at least 100 years, if not further. I think it can be found in concepts like privity and the common law. So I think that there's basis to say that it's not a modern concept. And Justice Scalia appears to, at least in part, agree with me, but there are other people who disagree with me, and I've given links to those in the description below if you really want to read through the history of the finer points of the origins or lack thereof of standing, whether it was invented in the 1920s and its historical antecedents or lack thereof in the common law. But it's built into where it's coming from in the text is the idea of a case or controversy. And also the other place it's coming from is the idea that it should be committed to one of the political branches. And this is the generalized grievance idea. In order to prevent the courts from going too far, in order to prevent them from doing too much, in order to prevent them from becoming too powerful, courts should stay out of domains that are not appropriate for them. And one of the reasons that you need to show a particularized harm as opposed to a general harm is that if there's a general harm, that is, it's not to you in particular, but it's to society as a whole, it's to a population as a whole, then the remedies are in political branches, not legal branches. So it's a principle also of restraint, and a principle of comedy, and a principle of reverence and deference to the political branches of government. If you're upset, for example, that the government is not enforcing the law properly on the whole, then the remedies there are political, to elect different officers and so forth and so on. And one of the reasons that you elect certain people in the first place is because of the kinds of laws that they will enforce and the ones they're less likely to. The kind of philosophy they have on faithfully interpreting the law, for example, in the case of the president. So President Trump certainly didn't enforce every law and didn't enforce every law equally. And Joe Biden won't enforce every law and enforce every law equally, and they'll have different priorities. And part of the reason to vote for or against someone is specifically because of the kind of laws they will or will not enforce, right? And the kind of policies they'll have to various things. And so the idea is, if you have been harmed because the government at large is not enforcing the law, or you've been harmed as just one among many, the cures are in the political branches than in the legal branches. The judicial branch is not out to try to solve political problems. And so if you're upset that the Pennsylvania legislature or the Board of Elections or anyone else has failed to follow through particular processes, the remedies there are political and to be more engaged rather than less engaged. And so that's one of the concepts that's baked in there as well, is that the judicial branch should not do things that are not judicial in nature, not legal in nature. And when they're starting to try to do things on the kinds of scales that people are talking about in terms of certifying elections or requiring certain processes, the political elements become more and more relevant and more charged. And so the idea that the judicial branch maybe should scale off because the judicial branch should be comparatively weak to the political branches because they're not elected, right? Since they're not elected and they're not necessarily accountable to the political process, therefore they should back off and allow people who are accountable to the political process to make those primary decisions. And if people are unhappy with them, then they can be replaced. The idea of the judge king is not necessarily positive. So I think a lot of these things make sense from first principles, makes sense from a lot of judicial restraint, makes sense from the judicial branch not becoming just a group of unelected kings, and trying to stay out of the political domain and allowing elections to mean something so that people can vote for it, the people they want, and if they're unhappy, to vote for different people. So that's all I really have on standing, and so we'll ask some questions on, I'll answer some questions because it was really all I had to say on that 13-minute introduction. There's a lot of stuff, but you can read it on your own. So let's see what we got here for questions. Article 3 in first standing, that's certainly one way to read it, yes. $5 from Nuvi. Redacted won the election. Everyone needs to redact it. The Supreme Court redacted this decision. That's funny. That's very good. Yeah. When Rakita talked about him, YouTube sent that whole section of the Steam to the Shadow Realm. That's hilarious. Word of the day is antecedent. Yes, antecedent is a wonderful word. It means what came before. Antecedent. Fantastic. Yeah, the antecedent is what came before. Yeah, so Marbury versus Madison didn't talk about standing. It did talk about standing in kind of a roundabout way too, yeah. Glad to see you're feeling a little better, yes. Latches is BS. The elections just happened. Lawsuits before were dismissed for lack of injury and for latches. Yeah, I mean, there's reason to be critical, although latches is a little bit weird because the time frames we're talking about, but the whole thing is time condensed anyway, because you only have from the date of election day to You only have like a 30-40 day period, so everything is hyper condensed. So what would make latches in this context would come down to like a difference of a day. Filing it on day 29 might not be latches, and day 30 would be. Normally you wouldn't make that kind of analysis, but everything is so hyper condensed that you have to like really run to the wall, and everyone's running to the wall like crazy, and maybe you needed to run a little bit faster. So yeah, are latches BS in this context? I mean, I suppose you could think they are, but things are so hyper condensed that the courts are going to be like, well, could you have filed, especially if there was any ability to file it before the election. And some of them would have said it wasn't right, but some of them, they might have disagreed. And even if you had tried and found it wasn't right, then you would have been able to say, well, it wasn't right then, so maybe it's right now. And so, is it BS? I don't know. I'm partially sympathetic to the court, because it's like, why couldn't you file this a week ago? And normally that won't matter that much, but in this time frame, everything is so condensed that you have to have a little bit like a little bit of understanding of what they're going through, I think. Monster Does Marketing. Apologize. $50 from innocuous remark. Thank you. Is this election super different from the kerfuffle with Bush versus Gore? Yes. Or are people just being dramatic? Is the empire crumbling? No. Or should just chill out? I think everyone should chill the hell out. And I think the Republicans did way better on the national level, on the national level, and even on the local levels than people are giving them credit for. The Republicans picked up 9 seats in the House. It's ridiculous. They were supposed to lose seats, and they picked up 9 seats. It's ridiculous. The Democrats are going to be down to a 4-seat margin. If the Republicans don't completely blow it in Georgia, which is not beyond the realm of possibility, so please go vote, but they should be able to maintain the majority in the Senate. It looks like they'll get 51 rather than 52. But if they don't completely blow it, they should be able to get that last seat. The guy who was a Republican did have like 49 point, was it 6 or 49.8? He was very close. So all he needs is like just a tick more. So yeah. And then the Republicans picked up quite a few state legislatures, and which helps massively with redistricting and a lot of work gets done on state policy rather than federal policy. So, and the Republicans picked up a lot of grounds in terms of minority vote. So I think everyone should chill out. And I think, I just don't think that there was like some sort of massive problem this time. I don't really see the evidence for that. And, Trump did get the second most votes of anyone ever. So like everyone who said, well, do you think that Biden beat Obama? You know who else beat Obama? Trump did. Because Trump had the second most votes of everyone. So Trump outpassed Biden. And that might be due to a lot of reasons. Maybe it's due to increased mail-in voting. Maybe that turnout was way up. Maybe it's due to there being more people in the United States. Maybe it's due to a lot of factors. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Trump also beat Obama. So it doesn't particularly surprise me that Biden beat him as well. And the rate of people voting was way up. So hey, that's probably good, right? Let's see. Math, $25 from Jim Griffin. I thought there was going to be something called the Supreme Court bar, and you have to be admitted to argue before it. Yes, that's correct. So Ted Cruz could be admitted for argument. Ted Cruz is already admitted. Ted Cruz has made like 8 or 9 arguments before the Supreme Court. So Ted Cruz doesn't have to be admitted. He's already been admitted. He had a very successful career at the Supreme Court as an advocate before he became a senator. I think he won 5 or 6, so he won a majority, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's the freaking Supreme Court. So if you can come up with a 50-50 record at the Supreme Court, you're not doing too bad. So yes, there is something called the Supreme Court. Yes, you have to be a member to make an argument at the Supreme Court, but Ted Cruz, already there. He made many different arguments. $5 from Greg Kranos. As far as aware, Texas was suing for contract violation. Not exactly, but that's kind of sort of whatever. What venue would be appropriate to address it if the judges aren't? It's not an issue of venue, and this is also slightly an issue of trying to be very precise in our words when we're adding different legal concepts. Let me finish my thought, and then I'll come back to the super chat that just went on screen. There's issues of jurisdiction. There's issues of standing. There's a lot of different issues. So some of it is because people are not using the words with precision. And I wouldn't necessarily blame you. I'm not trying to give you a hard time because these words are not particularly familiar. So some people think like lots of things are standing that aren't standing because they're not maintaining the separation between concepts, and it's like the first time they've ever heard it. So I can't give them too hard a time. But the venue was not the issue. The issue was standing. The issue was that Texas didn't have any particularized harm, and so there's nowhere Texas can sue, because even if they could theoretically sue somewhere else, which they can't because the Supreme Court had original jurisdiction, but even assuming that wasn't a problem, they wouldn't be able to sue anywhere because they didn't have any harm to Texas. So because they didn't have any harm to Texas, they can't sue anywhere for whatever Georgia or Pennsylvania or anyone else did. $5 from Q Squared. Chill out. I support everyone chilling out. $5 for chilling out. Let's keep politicians out of office if we can. If we can't, take a shot and chillax. I think it's probably a good idea. Everyone should chill a little bit out. I think it's going to be fine. Monster Does Marking. Can you explain what case the Supreme Court can take when it comes to state lawsuits and state-specific Supreme Courts? Well, in terms of states suing another state, the most common reason for a state to sue another state would be a land dispute or a water dispute. Water disputes are pretty frequent and the bane of the Supreme Court. There's like one case that's been going on since 1974 or something that's still ongoing at the Supreme Court on original jurisdiction because they keep coming back every once in a while because one side is mad at the other. I think is it New Mexico versus California or something like that, arguing over water rights. So water rights is a major thing. Land rights, less common now. The most famous land rights dispute probably is where is Ellis Island, or was it Liberty Island? One of the two, maybe both. So the New York versus New Jersey fights on land disputes were fun. Where is Ellis Island? Where is Liberty Island? Those were fun, where they were pissing and moaning at each other. Water rights, especially if one state is like using more water than they're supposed to, or rivers move, that's fun. And the other one for states versus states is interstate commerce and restrictions or improper restrictions on interstate commerce. So you can't improperly harm another state's commerce. And Texas sued California over this because I forget exactly why, so I'm going to mess this up slightly, but it was San Francisco or Los Angeles, or maybe it was the California state government who said something like, no one who gets money from the state can have a convention in Texas, something like that. So anyone who gets money from the state cannot, for any reason, cannot do a convention or a retreat or other thing in Texas. And if you do, you lose the money. So Texas sued California over that because you can't do that. You can't say this money is contingent on you not going to Texas and spending money there. You can't do that for any reason. It wasn't the money they were giving them, incidentally. That was part of the problem. Like, it wasn't money for a particular purpose. And they said, by the way, don't spend it in Texas, which maybe you could get into that state spending power kind of issue. It was, if you're getting this money, you can't spend any money to go to Texas and have a convention. So that was another thing where you see this dispute between states. But that's another one where you see that. When it comes to state Supreme Courts, the U.S. Supreme Court cannot hear a case coming from a state Supreme Court. They can only hear federal issues. So the only way that they appeal from a state Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court is if there's a federal issue involved. And then it's not, did you get your state law wrong? It's, is your state law as it exists in conflict with the federal law? So the Supreme Court will never say, the U.S. Supreme Court will never say your state law is wrong. They will say your state law is in conflict with this federal law, and so it doesn't work. But hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. I'm still struggling with the YouTube chat, by the way, in case you're wondering why I'm delaying answering questions. It's a pain in the ass. The drama never ever ends. Brian Reese says, I understand what you're saying, but what's the political remedy? That is election process if you don't have faith in. Well, I think you should have faith. I don't think there's a reason not to have faith, and I think you should go out and vote and encourage more people to vote. And yeah, I think, I think you should have faith. If you lose faith, I don't know what to tell you, except don't. David Seawright says, I'm sorry. I think Thomas seems more right on you this one. I'm very sad, extremely frustrated, very befuddled by your ineptitude. Okay, David, first of all, personal insults are not helpful because they're less likely to engage a substantive response. When you insult people personally, they're more likely to just respond angrily than substantively. But since I'm in a good mood, I will look past that issue, and I'll point out that it's not clear Thomas and Alito are saying something I think very, very technical, very, very specific. I don't think Thomas or Alito are saying that they think that Pennsylvania has standing. They are saying something extremely precisely technical. It's an order of operations problem, and I covered this a little bit early in my stream earlier. But the way I analogize it is because I think I like the symbolism of it. Is does the bouncer at the club have to let you in the club before he kicks you out? That's the dispute in that case. The majority said in the Texas versus Pennsylvania, the bouncer doesn't have to let you in the club because you're not properly dressed, right? Because you're not properly dressed, we don't have to let you in the club. That was what the majority said. The minority opinion from Alito and Thomas said they have to let you in the club, and then stops talking. They stop talking. It doesn't say, and then what, right? So I think it's a very pedantic order of operations argument. So to go out of the metaphor and to go back to the reality, the majority in the Texas versus Pennsylvania said, because there is no standing, you can't file the case. All right? Because there is no standing, you can't file the case. What Alito and Thomas said is, you can file the case, and then what, right? And then what? It's not clear that they wouldn't then say, and by the way, there's no standing and we're kicking you right out the door again. So I think Thomas and Alito are making a much more subtle, much more technical, very pedantic order of operations point. I don't think they were actually saying there was standing. And I don't blame you for reading it that way because it was left vague. And I think left purposely vague because they didn't want to be put on the record. But if you read it really, really carefully, I think what it's saying is we'd let them in the door and just kick them right out again. So it's a very technical point, but I hope that answers your question, Brian. Or David, apologize. Who said what you call principles are made up? Rule lawyers and political operators made. They're not principles of anything. The rules may keep everyone subservient. I could be very chidey and just point out that is in and of itself a principle. It's not a very good one, but your principle is that principles are made up and are used to keep people in subservitude. So I don't know what to tell you except, okay. If you don't have principles, I don't, Doesn't matter says, if the problem lies with enforcement of the law and the issue at hand is actual election, what's the actual course of remedy? Political, man. Texas was suing for breach of contract. Not exactly, no. What other method could they have taken to address a contract violation if the judicial branch is inviolate? They weren't exactly suing for breach of contract. Robert Barnes has said that that's kind of the philosophy behind it, which is kind of true. But that's not really precisely what they were suing for. They were suing for the violations of the Electors Clause, and I didn't think it was there either. But it's a very, whatever. There was no way for Texas to get what it was looking for. Lomax61 says, so what's your take on Scalia and Bush versus Gore intrastate and compared to Texas case interstate and the differences in those cases? Yeah, Bush versus Gore was an incredibly precise factual picture. And I did a video on it on my channel on election day, incidentally. So if you go back to November 3rd or November 8th or whatever day election day was, because I forget at this point. But if you go back on my channel, I did a video on Bush versus Gore. I thought it was pretty good. But Bush versus Gore dealt with a very, very precise factual picture. The Florida Supreme Court, which is to say a singular state body, ordered a statewide recount on a common set of rules and then failed to provide what the rules were. And so everyone was doing them differently under a singular state authority. And that is not true pretty much anywhere else or any other situation. Ballots are normally counted on a county level, if not a precinct level, or some other sub-designation. It is very weird to have a singular authority doing stuff. Normally it's done on a county level. And so it was a very precise, factual picture. So the Supreme Court made a point of, in the opinion, saying, don't ask us about what happens if different counties are doing different things. But go back, watch my video. I thought it turned out really well. Richard the Peer says, you're a good lawyer to avoid the hype for money train. High emotions are good for money, but bad for society. Fair enough. So I'm a total layman. Is there anyone who does have standing to sue the people Texas was suing? Oh, sure. Yeah, the people of that state would, for various, I mean, the campaign would, Trump would, probably not an individual voter. The best person who has standing is Trump, as an individualized person who's been harmed by it, or the Trump campaign. And there's definitely cases out there that say he has standing. He would lose for other reasons, but standing wouldn't be his problem. He'd win on standing. He'd lose for any number of other reasons, but standing's not the problem. $5 from Tall Skinny Geek. People keep comparing down ballot between 2018 and 2020, but better comparison is 2016 and 2020. Down ballot did worse this time, not better. Well, yeah, maybe that's true, but people were expecting a blowout for the Democrats, right? I mean, that was the expectation. So I think we should judge the success based on the expectation, and we outperformed expectations. So we may have done worse than we did 4 years ago, but I think we well outperformed expectations, and we should be happy. $5 from Q Squared. If this election is any sort, you should encourage people to vote regardless. That's what I'm saying, man. Everyone should vote regardless of politics, and that would be good. Yeah. Oh, is there a reason to hit up standing? Yes, there is. Because I made a video challenging Robert Barnes, and people were whiny. And people were whining. It's like, why don't you challenge him on his view of standing? I'm like, okay, we'll make a video on standing. So if you go back to the video I did earlier, there were some comments. This shows you how I take comments seriously. So if you do my video from earlier today, people were like, you're just doing whining and pissing and moaning. Why don't you actually disagree with him on substance? Why don't you actually show how he's wrong? Why don't you actually show why he's wrong on standing? I'm like, okay, we'll do a live stream on standing. We'll actually discuss it. We'll go through some law review articles. We'll post some links so people can read, and here's the history of it. So I'm like, yes, there's a reason to do it. People called me out. I'm like, okay, no problem. We can do that too. So that's why we're doing it, man. McFluff Guy says, Barnes has a point you must at least recognize. Standing isn't in Article 3. The word isn't. That's true. But that doesn't mean that other words that are there don't encompass the concept, such as case or controversy would be the ones that Scalia pointed to. If precedent can change, then standing is nothing more than a doctrine made for expedience. Unclear that's true. Scalia would apparently disagree with you. I understand why you're revising the issue, but I enjoyed my rant last night. Regarding latches being lateness, filing late results in mistakes and typos, and everyone criticizes the suit for that. Fair. It means nothing if they can just cheat in the Senate runoff. So the remedy to them just cheating is what, for Republicans never to vote again? That seems like a bad plan. Don't you see how Trump can lose, but the Republicans to a massive win? How does that make sense? Really? How does it make sense that Trump would lose, but the Republicans overall would do good? Because people like Republican ideas and don't like Trump. That'd be why. It's not particularly hard to figure out why Trump would underperform Republicans at large. Not for the least of reasons. That Trump isn't really so much a Republican. I mean, lest I point out that he was a Democrat for most of his life. And, he, as far as Republicans go, so why would Republicans perform well and not Trump? I mean, it's like, because Trump, I mean, Are there no federal cases that offer precedent when it comes to standing? There's a ton. There's a ton of federal cases that have precedent on standing. Are you doing a video on the Atrium audit? 68% error rate. How's that not evidence? I don't know enough about it. I did see that. I'm doubtful. I think also one of those things said 81%. 81% error rate. I'm like, there's no way that's possibly true. And like, it's one of those things that's like too good to be true. right? Too much to be true. It's overproving its case. It's like there's no way there can really be a 68% error rate. There's no way there can be an 81% error rate. Like, really? There's something's wrong about that number. It's like, so I don't know what's wrong about the number, but the number doesn't make sense. Because 81% of votes are in error. I mean, no, that doesn't seem like that's possible. So I'm not exactly sure what they're counting. I'm not sure how they're coming to those conclusions. I'm not competent necessarily to respond to it, but I'm like, that doesn't seem like that can be true. Something is wrong with this number. I don't know what yet, but something is wrong. Is it possible for state governments can do anything to combat big tech and critical race theory? Oh, sure. Yeah, states can do a lot. Yeah, states can pass lots of laws, especially in critical race theory. That's easy enough to, they're in charge of education. That's easy. In terms of doing combating big tech, yeah, they can do a lot there too. I would have loved to have heard Ted Cruz's argument. Yeah. Well, if you were interested in hearing old arguments from his, those are easy enough. Those are all audio recorded. So if you want to go listen to old stuff from Ted Cruz, we could do a Supreme Court React one time. Maybe we could do one on Friday. Maybe we could just pick a random Ted Cruz case, and we could just listen to Ted Cruz argue at the Supreme Court. That might be fun. Maybe we'll pull an old Ted Cruz case for Friday. Can a non-citizen outside the United States, and it scrolled back to the bottom for no reason. Where was I? Can non-U.S. citizens outside the United States have standing in front of court? Yes, if they're harmed by the United States, it's possible. Yes. Can I sue Newsom for pain and suffering if wishing made it so? Wasn't there a case about water rights in Texas with the aquifer? It wouldn't surprise me. I really increased your last video. Would you mind elaborating what you saw in the video that you found disturbing? I don't know how to elaborate on it. I think what I said was, he expresses everything with absolute confidence even when he really shouldn't. He expresses everything with the same kind of confidence and certainty, even ideas that are very marginal. And I think it's leading people down to the wrong conclusions. And it's hard for me to think of specific examples, it's not hard for me to think of them, but I'm hard pressed to figure out how to address them because I don't want to get into a merits argument. I don't want to say he said this extreme thing and then get into a merits argument about that because it's a whole different discussion. So if I want to do that sometime, I'm gonna have to do it separately. So it's not that I can't think of any. It's just if I mention it right now, if I mention he said this thing in confidence and he shouldn't, I'm gonna have to now get into an argument about that specific thing, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. It's just that it's distracting the stream from what we're currently talking about. You know what I mean? So if I mention it, I now have to switch arguments into something completely else. So it's like, maybe I'll make a video specifically dealing with something that would be a good example. But for the moment, I'll just stick with, he says everything with absolute confidence, even when he really shouldn't. He says marginal things with an absolute confidence and certainty that makes it sound like it's the revealed truth of God or something. And that's, a problem, because when I try to express things that are more doubtful, I try to express them with more doubt. Nuvi gives me $20 and says, I have $20 on old Ted Cruz case. Excellent. $9.99 from Does It Matter? Can you square the circle that Trump made significant gains in minority vote and expanded his total vote count by 8 million, coupled with Republican gains he still lost? Yes. He lost the white suburban women vote. That's what happened. He lost the white suburban women vote. He gained minority vote. He gained vote in the inner city and lost the white women suburban vote. That's what the numbers show. So, that's easy enough. Will Carter said, hang on, didn't Bush versus Gore establish a diluted vote to unequal protection of voting standards and injury? No, it was due to the counting standards being the problem. It wasn't due to the vote being diluted. It was due to the singular state authority, the state government, ordering a statewide recount without how to do that such that when the people went to actually count the votes, different counties were doing it differently, and one county actually changed their standards in the middle of the recount. So it was the lack of there being standards was the equal protection problem in Bush versus Gore. It wasn't due to the diluted vote issue. My take on the Alito-Thomas dissent makes sense. Yeah, I think so. I think they're saying something very, very pedantic. Very pedantic. And people are reading it like they're talking about standing. I'm like, I'm not sure they are. I'm not sure that they think there is standing. I'm not even sure Alito and Thomas think they're standing. They think that the Supreme Court has to hear the case. But what happens after that? I don't know. And I don't think they think they're standing. I think they wrote the way they did, though, on purpose to not pin themselves down. So, yeah. Can I address the issue of stare decisis applying to standing for the last century? Barnes seems to forget this argument, even considering Article 3 does standing. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you can point out the stare decisis factor that it is embedded in the law. But then again, I bitch at Wickard v. Filburn all the time, and that's almost a century old. Not quite, but getting close. It's 90 years old, a little bit less than that. And I complain about 90-year-old decisions. So he could complain about a 90-year-old decision too. It's just not clear to me that it's not baked in. And some people who think that they're originalists think it's baked in. 1999 from Donald Helms. What else will President Trump do to protect the Georgia runoff? I mean, encourage people to vote, man. For example, bringing droves of U.S. postal inspectors from red states like Texas. That'd be not a bad idea. Postal inspectors, sure. Staff up suspected postal locations and more surveillance, yeah, that would be good. I don't know what he will do, but, bringing postal inspectors, not the worst idea I've ever heard of. Wait, we're doing another stream again? Yes, we are. What happened to the earlier stream? It's still up. The earlier stream is still up, I think, unless I'm mistaken. So we did a stream on jurisdiction, right? We did a stream on jurisdiction earlier this morning, and now we're doing a stream on standing, which is a different issue. Maybe we could do a stream completely on latches, and people can be like, wait, why are we doing the same stream again? Because now we're on to a completely different issue, right? Yeah. $10 says from Stephen Wolbrock. There are audits. Apologize. They are adults and they can reason for themselves. I'd be more concerned if Barnes was teaching children. I don't know, man. I mean, I think that populations can be misled and adults can be misled, and there's certainly enough evidence to believe that. So I can be concerned even about adults and the information that they're getting. I think I can. It's a point of valid concern in my opinion. $5 from McFly Guy. What would happen should Trump's legal team sue each state on an individual basis based on Texas v. PA? At this point, nothing, because certification's already happened. It's way too late. But if they try to bring it earlier, maybe. I don't know. But it's too late at this point. Morgan Music said, just got here. Sorry if this is a repeat. Maybe it's my ignorance or law. So what should they have filed? 4 separate suits in 4 separate courts? Yeah. Well, Texas couldn't have filed lawsuits in the 4 separate courts because Texas doesn't have standing anywhere. Texas doesn't have standing in Georgia's courts. And also they can't, because Texas can't, literally, because of the way the Constitution's written. They can only sue in the U.S. Supreme Court. But just because they can only sue there doesn't mean they can sue there. You know what I mean? It's a place you can sue if you have a case. But if you don't, you can't. Just because you can't file everywhere else doesn't mean you can necessarily file here. You can't go home, but you can't stay here. You know what I mean? What's my take? Are Republican electors not allowed to vote in Michigan? The Democrats won. You know what I think about these people who are trying to get into the door and trying to cast their electoral votes, and the one in Nevada, they were meeting in a parking lot and signing paperwork? I think they're LARPers. I think they're all LARPers. I think they're LARPing being electors. We want to come in, we want to cast our votes. No. You didn't get the thing from the governor. The governor actually has to give you a commission to be an elector, and you didn't get one, and you're not an elector, so they're not going to let you in the door. So I think they're LARPers, and I want to point and make fun of them. That's how I feel about it. $5 from John Harkins. I knew in my heart after that first debate and hearing out your key points, I saw things were beyond slim for Trump. Thank you for not blowing smoke. That is so frustrating because it came down so close. Some of these states were 0.5%, right? If he hadn't blown that first debate, I think the odds were pretty good Trump would have won. I think he might have lost this election because of that first debate. I mean, debates don't normally change the polls that much, but we're not having to change them that much. We're changing it by a very small margin. So I think if he had come in and done that first debate properly, and maybe been a little bit clearer on the messaging related to COVID, I think he would have won this election. So I think Trump, especially that first debate. I mean, the COVID thing, you could argue about what you did or did not know at the time, right? So you could argue about what is improper hindsight versus what was proper. And so you could make arguments, I think, on COVID. And you could also argue that, like, his messaging was where it needed to be. But I think in terms of the debate, he totally flubbed it. Because, like, debates and how to do debates are not a secret. And he totally messed it. And it was very annoying. $9.99 from Javier Pena. After watching your recent video about Barnes' numbers versus yours, keep doing what you're doing. Your analytical approach brings more value, especially to fellow lawyer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Analytical is what I do, and I appreciate it. And No Name gives me $5. Thank you, No Name. Now back to the chat. Thoughts on what happens to Congress, to the country if Congress actually denies swing state electors? Oh, they won't. I doubt it. And if they do, it's chaos. Yeah, they're not going to do anything like that. It's not going to happen. I'd be amazed if there is actually a written complaint from a House member and senator. I know someone said that they would do it, but if they actually do it, I'd be amazed. And I'd be amazed. It's not going to change anything. Can I address the issue of stare decisis applying to standing for the last century? Oh, I did that already. In Bush versus Gore, Supreme Court determined they have ultimate jurisdiction in cases that involves election for president. It's not exactly what they said. You have to read it with a little bit more care. And again, you can go back to my video I did on my channel on Election Day. I think I did a pretty good job summarizing Bush versus Gore. It was not because it was a presidential election that gave the Supreme Court jurisdiction. It was because it was an equal protection violation, according to 7 of the 9 members of the Supreme Court, because of the specific fact pattern of that case. So go back to watch my channel, go back to Election Day, go watch the video on Bush versus Gore. I think it is extremely good. I think it was extremely good. I hope you find it to be good too. And you'll learn about the extreme nuance of Bush versus Gore. It was a very, very fact-specific case. And so, yeah, no, it wasn't because it was a presidential election. It was because of equal protection. It was equal protection because it was a singular state authority, and so forth and so on. It was very fact-specific. Was my OnlyFans links? I do not have one yet. Federal law supersedes, but they have different powers. Correct. Federal law is different than, so federal law is supreme, but it doesn't cover everything. Have I considered going Alex Jones? I've done some Alex Jones parodies. You know, I've done a little bit of Alex Jones with doing the voice and the manic thing. I'm not so sure it's good for my health or my subscriber count. But, you know, if you guys want me to do a little bit more Alex Jones riffing, you know, I could do some more Alex Jones riffing. I just have to put on the Alex Jones voice, and I just have to do string of consciousness stuff, and it can be fun. So maybe we'll do that. Will Carr says, I mean, the Florida Supreme Court was in the process of deciding the issue. The Supreme Court stepped in, so we got this because we have a little jurisdiction. That is definitely not what happened, Will Carter. The Supreme Court of Florida had reached a decision, and then that decision got appealed to the Supreme Court. They didn't step in and yank it and yeet it out of the Florida Supreme Court. They went to Florida Supreme Court more than once, so maybe you're thinking of that. But yeah, it was decided by the Florida Supreme Court, and then it got appealed by Bush. And yeah, so not exactly. An unbiased lawyer is probably not a good thing. Well, it depends on your point of view. An unbiased judge is a very good thing. And most judges are, of course, lawyers. So, I mean, a lawyer should be a zealous advocate for his client. But I'm in the position of being able to be neutral and look at things because I'm more a legal educator, so I can be neutral. So I think it's actually very good for me to be neutral. You need a beanie? Maybe I need a beanie. That'd be good. This is why I attend class is funny. What's my problem with Worker v. Filburn? Oh, man, really? Oh, Ted. Oh, Ted wants to Ted wants to sting the Ted wants to knock over the hornet's nest. He says, "What's your problem with Wickard v. Filburn?" Oh, oh my God, Ted. Oh, are you just trying to bait me? Do you know that you're trying to bait me? Wow. I don't know if I should do that or not, because if we talk about that, that's some Alex Jones ranting material there. Ted Ted says, "What's your problem with Wickard v. Filburn?" Oh man. Oh my God. Uh, $10 from Robert Gustaf. Are you worried Trump will try to sabotage the Georgia runoff if more judge members acknowledge victory? I hope not. $5 from McFly Guy. The debate had little to do with moving the needle. Not honestly reporting higher Biden's corruption would have been a swung. That's probably quite true as well, yeah. That's probably quite true as well. Please announce when I go live. You know. Now I have to scroll back up and find where I was in the chat because I'm really enjoying this, incidentally. I don't want to stop the stream. So I keep scrolling up and figuring out where I was. Where was I? All right, let's see. Around here, I think. So it's basically Uncivil versus Robert Barnes standing up, something like that, maybe. Would I agree with someone that most pollsters are not good at their job? I haven't really thought about really super hard, to be quite honest. Not my field of expertise. Mr. Spiffy says the Anthem thing is just a reference to what we already knew. They had a ballot form error and had 6,000 votes out of line. So they calculated that out of the total votes or some such. Yeah, okay, so there were 6,000 votes that had problems and needed to be corrected. That sounds about right. I mean, if we're talking about I don't even know what state we're in, but if we're talking about a couple million votes, depending on what state we're in, 6,000 votes is an error rate. It's like that's probably well within the margin. I mean, the guidelines from the FEC are 1 in 250,000. So for every million, you're expecting 4. But so 6,000 is kind of high, but you know, it's not like unheard of high. 1 in 250,000 is pretty aspirational, to be quite honest. Can I help Nick from Rakita to overcome his copium addiction? I don't know about that. You were stuck in Cyberpunk 77. How's that working out, Rick? I've heard a lot of mixed things. I was kind of waiting for the first major patches. I think I liked the game. I liked a lot about it, and then I decided not to buy it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't at this point. So maybe I'll wait for the first DLC or something. Because how's that working out for you? Because I had a lot of interest in Cyberpunk 77, and right now I'm not so sure. The error rate was the rate at which the machine does not make a call what the ballot says and sent for adjudication. Okay, I'll take your word for it. How come no one on the group streams? How come on group streams no one asks Viva Fry how things like standing and vote counting are handled in Canada? I don't know. The Viva Barnes chat was ranting for a military coup. Yeah, they were. They were calling for a coup, and they were calling for dissolution of the republic, and all kinds of things. So I had more than a few concerns about the things that were going on in the Viva Fry Barnes chat. And the fact that neither Viva or more specifically Barnes does anything to temper it down is more than a bit concerning. So, you know, and I think the chat's coming to the wrong conclusions because they're kind of being misled a little bit. Do I listen to Pitter Shift? No. I don't know in terms of, like, I just read a lot and I just look at various numbers and demographics. Will Carter said neither Viva nor Barnes ranted for a military coup. No one said he did. Will Carter that said said the chat was ranting for a military coup. You got to read these things a little bit more carefully, you know. So Can I post a link to my OnlyFans? No. How? Okay, I did that. Your thoughts on congressional objection dual votes? I don't see that happening. I really don't. They're saying the case is an absolute joke. The legal theory was an absolute joke. It was outstandingly well written, though. It was one of the best legal documents I've written and read in recent memory. It was unbelievably well written. It just didn't go anywhere. $5 from Q Squared. Could I go over the 538 predictions versus final vote counts? Yeah, I'll take a look at those potentially, yes. Do I have the same kind of distaste for judges that certain others do? I don't understand the question. There are particular judges I'm not particularly friendly of. Justice Breyer comes particularly to mind as a justice I'm not a huge fan of. Let's give Barnes a bit of a break and say that he has actually been part of the process, been a good advocate for his party. I'll think about it. $2 from Q Squared. Awesome sauce. Thanks. Thank you. What's my favorite video game right now? I've been enjoying Redressability, I guess is the name of the game. It's a Mars builder. It needs a little bit of work and development. It needs a couple patches, especially in resource allocation. But I did enjoy. I won the machine playthrough, and I need to play some of the other playthroughs. But I played the shit out of this game, Redressability, which is a city builder on Mars. And I was playing Assassin's Creed Vikings. I need to get back into that, and I still need to play Witcher 3 at some point. So maybe I'll play that next. I thought state Congress can bypass governor certification. State legislature can do anything they want. I'm pretty sure. Maybe if Trump would hire Phoenix Wright, yeah. I really enjoy yours, Emily's, and Nate's stream. Yeah, Emily and I are tentatively on for Monday night next week. So that would be 6 days from now. We're tentatively on for Monday. So that'll be fun. I'm becoming a legend in the tea community with the headbanging. I'm not sure how to feel about that, but I will headbang for tea. You know? So I don't know about all that, but fair enough. You're an engineer, enjoy my analytical approach, keep up the good work? Excellent. Yeah, my undergrad is in computer science. I don't know if that leads to the analytical approach or not, but my undergraduate degree is computer science, which is engineering adjacent at least. And so maybe that leads to a more analytical approach, and that's why I do analytical things in law. But yeah, I was, engineering adjacent. I'm having a lot of issues on PC. Yeah, I'll wait. PC version is fine. I'll still wait. Watch worth a buy review. He says wait 6 months. That sounds about right. That's fine. I can wait. If you're doing PC, you can wait. I'll wait. If you get Cyberpunk, don't get it on Xbox or PlayStation. But PC is okay? All right. I'm not a lawyer, but when I first heard about this Texas case, my first two thoughts. This won't work because sovereign versus sovereign. The Supreme Court won't get involved with this political solution. Pretty much, yeah. Trump can still win with Executive 134848. Wasn't that one of the Homeland Security ones? Probably was. And sanctions with foreign interference? No, that's not going to do anything. A. Hedinger is now explaining Wickard v. Filburn. I agree with your assessment of Wickard v. Filburn and several others, but like addressing standing, similar to addressing stare decisis. Neither can be discounted outright, yeah. What I'd like to know, seeing that just now, as I said, I'd like to know, the thing just scrolled to the bottom. So you want to know why I stopped speaking mid-sentence? You want to know why I stopped speaking mid-sentence? Because it's like, what I'd like to know, and bam, right to the bottom. Where was I? Well, I'd like to know about voter fraud is total number of fraudulent votes compared to total number of votes. Yeah, I think it's probably very minimal, if I had to guess. But I'd just be guessing. For states like Georgia and Arizona, could the state legislature move to invalidate the governor's certificate? Yes, they could. And then Congress could have a fight about it, which would be hilarious. But yes, they could. It would have helped if they had done it before the safe harbor date. But yes, they could. And then we'd have a fight about which ones are valid. But yes. Love to hear more about Barnes and Stanley. Have you talked to him yet? Can you read? I can, in fact, read, and I have not talked to him, no. Nor do I have a real intention to at this point. Surely you can't blame a YouTuber for what's in their chat. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not blaming them for the... Well... I think you have to be careful. I think you can only hold a YouTuber responsible in their chat to the degree that it is causally caused by the YouTuber themselves. And that might be difficult to determine. So I don't think you can hold a YouTuber responsible for everything in their chat, because I think that'd be insane. But when you see like enough things coming up that are of a similar tenor, it suggests something that might be worthy of note. So I don't think you can hold them responsible for something that's really, really stray. But like on that chat last time, the chat last Sunday, it was... There was comments made with disturbing frequency, in my view, that put a note of concern in my eye. So I don't think you can hold a YouTuber responsible for, what one person does or even what a small minority does, because people do all, I think. But when you have a lot of people, and it seemed like a lot, there's somewhere in there that's like, maybe there's something related to what the YouTuber is doing. That might be a problem. So I don't know. There might be a line in there somewhere. But I definitely think you can't hold them responsible for like just what one guy does, because that'd be ridiculous, What news sources do I follow on YouTube? I follow a lot of lawyers online, and I follow a lot of different things actually online. I follow a lot of BreadTube, more than you'd probably expect. I was banned from the ContraPoints Discord for wrong think, though. Makes me sad. I think I said nice things about Jordan Peterson, and they banned me from the ContraPoints server. That was annoying. You have Per Aspera running right now? Cool. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Black Flag kicks ass. Assassin's Creed Black Flag is fucking awesome. I want to live that pirate life adventure again, man. I should just play the game just for like a 100% completionist bullshit. That game is fucking awesome. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, if you can get it on sale, just buy the shit out of it. And then you just get to live that pirate life. It's fucking great. And you get to sing sea shanties. The sea shanties kick ass. Assassin's Black Flag is like the greatest game ever. It's really, really good. It's absolutely one of my all-time favorites. I'm not even kidding. Assassin's Black Flag is fucking great. I don't know if it's my favorite game of all time, but it's up there. I love Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Sea shanties. Sea shanties for days, man. I love that sea shanty life. We'll be alright if the wind be in our sails. We'll be alright if the wind be in our sails. Be alright. Wind be in our sails. Yeah, it's good shit, man. Just get the soundtrack and just listen to it over and over again. Like, yeah, sea shanties for life. The GOP has this coming for a while. They barely survived the Tea Party. They won't survive another populist push. I don't know about that. The Democrats have problems inside their internal ranks too. I'm not sure who has a bigger threat. Any upcoming streams with Nick? None planned. I did text message to Nick. I text messaged Nick. He acknowledged I text messaged him, and he hasn't text messaged me back. I might text him later, though, but that'd be good. Nostradamus Quatren, something's 97. I'm not going to look at Nostradamus right now, but that's funny. You love my outside perspectives on the beauty lawsuits? That's cool. I find that when words are nuanced or hedging are used in opinions of low probability, many people tend to transform into stronger versions of what you told them. Yeah, at least but you try, right? So I don't know. Green looks good on me. Thank you. $5 from Super Chat. OMG, can you imagine if someone held you to blame for that ass that never stopped arguing about the definition of escaping? But if it was the whole chat, if it was the whole chat, I probably would have given up this YouTube career. That was painful, man. Videos after videos trying to convince one guy about the definition of escape. I made a couple videos just basically for one guy, trying to teach him. Yeah, it didn't go well. Mistakes were made, I think. It's always a thing when the larger the stream gets, it gets more rowdy. Eventually dissolves into stamming. I'll take it with a grain of salt. Maybe. You might have a fair point. You should talk to Richard Barris if you both get a chance. Great poster. Okay. By the way, mechanical engineering is the only mechanical engineering? Okay. I mean, I do have some love for some ME. Yeah, but I think the EEs, man, would have a word with you, you know? But, yeah, so I don't know, man. But, yeah, okay. It's really high. Can I DM you on Twitter? I work elections and it's much scarier than you imagine. You can't DM me on Twitter, but you can DM me on Discord if you like. I don't really use Twitter, but you can follow me on Discord if you like. I should bring up my inner Alex Jones to bear on Wicker v. Filburn. I might do that when the chat ends. That'd be scary. Oof. I'm not sure that's a good thing. It's not the streamer's fault, but you gotta wrangle the viewers. Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah. Biden never pushed communism. Hyperbole isn't helpful. Let's see, where's legal? Someone's got legal respect. It sounds about where I'd expect ContraPoints to sit. Yeah. Thanks for your view. Will says you're honest and thoughtful, and even though it's not 100% agreeable all the time, it's respect worthy. Yeah, you know, I'm a human being, and sometimes, you know, I fail too. That's okay. I honestly think Barnes pays no attention to chat. That's probably well true. To hold him or Viva responsible for anything in chat that moves at such incredible speed is absurd. I don't know that I can agree to that. I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm not sure I can agree to it. People are learning all the time, I think. People are learning from this chat. And if my chat goes wildly off base, it might suggest that I'm doing something wrong or giving bad information, right? So I use the chat as feedback too. And if it goes wildly off, it might suggest I'm doing something wrong. So I believe that he doesn't pay attention. But if the chat is off base, it might be an issue. Robert Gutierrez gives me $10. Engineering is a professional problem solving. Computer engineering all the way. So we have the engineers fighting each other now. The CE versus the ME. Yeah, so yeah. Ron Cole says Uncivil likes the sea shanties. Unfollow? Really? You're not a sea shanty fan? Man. That's not good. Pirate Life for me. Black Flag was great, but for some reason I have no desire to play any future Assassin's Creed. That's fine. Yeah. Black Flag should have just dropped all the Assassin's stuff and just been a pirate game. I wonder if there's a mod out there. That'd be good. I wonder if there's a mod out there that takes away like all the like stuff that's Assassin's Creedy in it. Like especially the stuff that's in the future, like the framing device that I totally don't need. It interrupts my flow. I wonder if there's like a mod that will like take all that out. That'd be awesome. Just to take away all the future framing device with the like the crypt that you get into and blah blah bullshit. I don't care. I just want to be a fucking pirate. You know? If you love to sail the sea, you are a pirate. Assassin's Creed is $20 on Steam. Buy it. Buy it. Buy Assassin's Creed for $20. Figure out a way to bypass all the framing device crap where you're in the future and just get to the sea shanty shit. It's awesome. Recommended. Now I'm singing for tips. Oh yeah, I'll sing for tips. What do we do with a drunken sailor? What do we do to a drunken sailor? Aye, up she rises, aye, up she rises, aye, up she rises early in the morning. Oh, yeah. Holy crap, you read 3 of my comments. I try. You are quickly becoming one of my favorite legal analysis. One to cover Minks Land's constitutional history of England and formation of common law. That sounds intense. That sounds like a lot. $5 from Q Squared. I took computer engineering. No, not just number civils, but bridges, man. CE and MEs do all the cool shiz. Fantastic. Excellent. Can we hear your Bex Alex Jones? I'm a gorilla. I'm a gorilla. I think it's best thing. EE stare at little tiny circuits all day and fry their brains. ME for life. Do I watch Learn French at all? Sure. Yeah. Yeah, Learn French and I are friends. We haven't talked in a while, though. So we haven't talked, especially since he moved over to Europe. But yeah, we used to do streams together and content together. He's kind of how I got my start in YouTube world, was through Leonard French. I appeared on his channel a couple times as I was getting started and then decided to have my own channel. So yeah, Leonard French and I've definitely watched him. I haven't heard from him as much. I hope he's doing well these days. I'm glad he finally got overseas and got to marry his fiance. That was a whole thing to do, where that wasn't there for a long time because of COVID. So that was awesome. And from what little I do talk to him, because we don't talk as much these days, it sounds like he's doing well. So that's cool. $20 from John Harkins. Oh, yeah, sure. Here's $20 to answer my last $10 super chat. I think you missed. Sorry, John. $10 from John Harkins. Are you willing to share your thoughts on big tech censorship, Section 230, and a bonus round if you like neutrality, whenever you're comfortable sharing? Okay, on Section 230, I thought the Department of Justice's reform proposal made a lot of sense. So in brief, the Department of Justice's proposal was essentially that you can have any policy you want in terms of censorship. You just have to state it clearly, and you have to be specific about it, and you have to actually apply it, and you have to make all marketing and public statements consistent with it. And if you don't do those things, the federal government will whack you with a big stick. So it's essentially honesty in trade. So I thought that proposal made a lot of sense. Have any policy you want, just be clear about it, have clear rules that, have them publicly available, make statements that are consistent with it, be true to who you are, and go from there. And I thought that was pretty good. So I thought it was a pretty good proposal. So I did a whole analysis on my channel of 230, or the reform proposal of 230. And I saw some weaknesses. I even saw some constitutional problems. But I was like, it's a good place to start. So I like the proposal very much. Big Ten censorship, I think 230 reform would help a lot, right? Because as long as they're honest about who they are and forthright and truthful and have policies consistent with that, then people won't feel this bait and switch thing. The problem is now that they sucker you in on the idea of we're an open platform, and then no, we're not, and that's really bad. So yeah. And in terms of what was your other question, net neutrality, I've been a supporter of net neutrality. I don't know how much difference it really makes in the end, because we got rid of net neutrality, and I don't know how much difference it made one way or another, but net neutrality I was a fan of. So hopefully that answers your questions. And thank you for the $30 worth of super chats. Robert Gustavo gave Q Squared hardware designs and programming all the way. By the way, nice name. That's funny. Yeah. I learned a shitload from this channel. I'm very happy to know that you learned a lot from this channel. That pleases me. I'm glad that you learned a lot, and I try to be very educational and try to provide a lot of good material. And thanks to all the people that are helping me behind the scenes and editing and all the rest of it, really, really helps. Anne says, I didn't like you at the beginning because I'm left of liberal and feminist, but you've grown on me. I like your logical and open mind and totally grift free. EE's rule. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be open-minded. So an open-minded conservative, not a contradiction in terms, right? An open-minded conservative, a conservative who wants to learn more. And so trying to keep straight and trying to apply rules. I think one of the things that, conservatives should be trying to do is trying to apply rules, at least, and trying to keep consistent rules. That's conservative, or at least it is to me. So, I appreciate that. But I'm glad that you didn't like me in the beginning, but still kept coming back. And I've warmed my way into your left of liberal heart. That pleases me. So thank you for being here. Kurt is in a much better mood tonight. I am in a better mood tonight. Maybe a stream of explaining the intricacies of maritime law while I'm dressed as a pirate. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I hated being brought out of the game and into the future. There's got to be a mod for that. There's got to be a mod for the Assassin's Creed, but only the Black Flag parts. There's got to be a mod for that. Buy it for $20 and figure out where the mod is to get rid of the Assassin's Creed framing device parts, because it's really annoying. It's not so bad, but it's, yeah. Got a better verse than most people have heard. Thank you. Chat is now rated ARG. Chicken on a raft. Chicken and raft Sunday morning. Chicken and raft. Okay, I gotta look up lyrics for Chicken on a Raft, because we were definitely obsessing over Chicken on a Raft for a while. We can do some Chicken on a Raft. Oh yeah. Skipper in the wardroom drinking Jedge. Chicken on a raft. I don't mind knocking my ain't going in. Chicken on a raft. Jimmy's laughing like a drain. Chicken on a draft. Been looking around. Comet cuts again. Chicken on a raft. Chicken on a raft. Chicken on a raft on a Monday morning. Oh, what a terrible sight to see. The boxes forward and dustman aft. Sit there picking out chicken on a raft. 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 Chicken and Raft kicks ass. Yeah. Chicken and Raft kicks ass. We just put the Chicken and Raft song in the background. Just jam out to that for a couple hours. Yeah. Good times. Was I the only one who's very disappointed they didn't continue the present plotline from AC3 meaningfully? Oh, someone said, how many Assassin's Creed they never learned they didn't like the future stuff? There's no future stuff. Oh, there's very, very little in the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Very little. So Alex is nuts but an amazing broadcaster. He clearly doesn't watch the Tim cast of I'm a Gorilla. I have not. I'm sorry. I have not done my proper thing. I apologize. Yeah, one of these days we could have the chat where we have to have the very incendiary topic of trying to have an open discussion about transgender issues, because I really would like to talk about that someday, because I want to understand it, because I can't get my mind around it, and I want to understand what I'm agreeing with or disagreeing with, and it's such a volatile topic, and I'm almost fearful to mention it, because like, where do you even start? And it's like, because from my point of view, the definitions don't work because they run into circles. So I'm like, how do you define these terms? It's like, I feel bad for even mentioning it now. So now we're going to get in a fight about it, but that's okay. We can get into a fight about it, and then we can drop the fight and we can have a fight about it later time. But it's like, okay, if you ask me, like, is a trans woman a woman? I'm like, okay, can you define your terms? Because I don't even know what we're talking about. I'm like, okay, well, a trans woman was a man and transitioned into a woman. Okay, but what's a woman? So it's like, can you define these terms in a way that makes sense for me? And I don't know. And like, some of the things people say, I don't even know what we're talking about sometimes. Because some people say, well, it's like if you have the mind of a woman, or you feel like you are a woman. And one of my responses to that was like, well, how would I know the difference? What would it mean to feel like a woman? What does that even mean? How would I analyze whether or not I feel like a woman or not? I mean, I only feel like I feel. How would I know what that is? Am I resorting to stereotypes? Is that what I'm doing? So I'm looking at like the way women act in general, and I'm like, do I feel like I'm that? So I'm making a stereotypic conclusion. But then again, there are some women who don't act in particularly feminine or woman ways, who aren't not women. So like, how do you analyze that question? What does it even mean? I don't understand these questions. I don't even understand the questions we're asking, right? So yeah, one of these days I have to have a conversation with some of my left-leaning friends who can explain this to me, because I get very, very confused. It's like, okay, it's like if you have the sex of a male, but you have the mind of a woman. I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? How do you know if you have the mind of a woman? What would it mean? What would it mean to have the mind of a woman? How would you know if you had the mind of a woman? Do I have the mind of a woman? How would I know the difference? These are the kinds of questions that I ask, and I don't know. It's like, it's like, so someone who is a woman, what are the essential qualities of womanhood? What are the necessary qualities of being a woman? There's a good one. What are the necessary qualities of being a woman? It's like, what qualities do you have to be a woman? If you don't have those qualities, you're not a woman. Are there any essential qualities? Are there any necessary qualities? What are they? It's like, what are the qualities that are essential to womanhood? What are the qualities that are essential to manhood? And so forth and so on. These questions consume my mind, because every time I've tried to think about it, I just run into logical circles, and I run back and I just can't get myself out of the loop. So, it's a real problem. So, one of these days, some of my left-leaning friends can help me on that one, because I haven't been able to figure it out yet. And because usually I just get called a transphobe or something. I'm like, I literally don't even understand what we're talking about. How can I be transphobic? I literally don't even understand what we're talking about. I don't understand it. It's like, well, then you're just ignorant. I'm like, yes, can you explain it to me? It's not my job to explain it to you. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful. I'd like to learn. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense. I'm confused. Look into Skull and Bones, supposed to be from Black Flag sequel from the same team. Not sure if it even came out, but it's worth watching. Ooh, I'll have to check that out. Thank you. Someone remind me on that one. I'll have to check that out. A woman needs to believe they are a woman, because you really can't put on physical characteristics. Yeah, but what does that mean, to believe that you are a woman? What does that mean? How would you know if you believe that you're a woman? How would you know that? Do I believe I'm a man? How do I know that? Am I a man or a woman? How would I know that? I don't even know what the question I'm asking is. Yeah, I don't even understand the question that I'm asking. You can't put it in physical characteristics. I'm like, okay, so you're putting it on a mental belief. Okay, so it's just based on belief? So if I believe that I'm a woman, I'm a woman? Is that how that works? The minute I believe it, then it becomes true? So it's based purely on a subjective belief? So there's nothing more to being a woman than the subjective belief in it? And then if that's true, then okay, but what does that mean to believe it? Is it just picking some? I don't even know the questions we're asking. It's very confusing to me. Yeah, I read, very famously, I read the Fourth Circuit case on Laird's channel where they obliterated the Peaceman and gave me a lot of fans. That's true. That was a good one for me. Liz means the same. That's what I like about you. Great, thanks. Just don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. Yeah, I try not to. That's why I try to always go back to principles and rules, right? So it's like, if I can apply rules in heuristics, then I can figure it out. That's right. Am I still taking requests for $25? I am. I would like to hear about Jacobson. I might have covered Jacobson on my channel. You'd have to double check, but I'd be happy to if I haven't already. But yes, I'm happy to. Left isn't even consistent on that. Yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about, right? So I can't agree or disagree to something if I don't understand it. I'm like, can I get a definition for these terms? No. I'm like, great. So I don't understand what we're saying. The distinctions are cultural. I don't even know what that means. Yeah. You can't praise the boys channel enough when you voice your concerns like that. Respectful conversation with people that work through these things. Okay, well, I'd be happy to talk to the boys channel. I mean, maybe they can help me figure out what exactly are we talking about. What does it mean to believe that you're a woman? What does it mean to feel like a woman? What does that mean? I don't know. Does it mean feeling sexy-ish? I don't know. Does it mean liking? Does it mean liking certain kinds of clothes or certain kind of fabrics? I don't know. Robert gave me $5 saying, not saying we are everything, but we still matter. Yeah. It's like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just feel it inside. I can't tell you how you feel. You have to feel how you feel, period. Yeah. Well, the poets have certainly been making efforts to say what it feels like to be in love for some time. But I'm a counselor therapist who works with LGBT. I'm right leaning, but also LGBT supportive. I'm in the next Discord. Hit me up and we can get something up to talk. That'd be cool. Ken Jennings, that might be fun. So yeah, you know where to find me too. I'm on Discord there too, so you can message me and we can talk. That'd be cool. I'd love to talk to you. Maybe we can figure something out. That might be fun. They want to distinguish between sex and gender. Yeah, I'm on board with that. Gender is apparently separate from sex, so I think it's malleable. Well, just because it's separate doesn't necessarily mean it's malleable. And if it is malleable, that means that you could stop being trans if you wanted to, or at least it's possible. I don't know if it's necessarily if you want to, but if it's malleable, then we could malleable you it back into not being trans. So if it's malleable, then we could make you not trans, at least theoretically, because it's malleable, right? So if it's immalleable, that means we can't convert you because it's immalleable. But if it's malleable, that means that, well, theoretically speaking, we could convert you. We could make you not be trans because it's malleable, right? That would mean what it would be to be malleable. It would mean it's changeable. So not necessarily by you necessarily yourself. You may not have the power to change it yourself, but forces could. So it'd be possible to change somebody from being trans to not being trans if it's malleable. That would mean what it would be to be malleable. So is it possible to not be trans? Or is it possible to become trans? If I'm not trans now, could I become trans? Could I be malleated into being trans? I mean, if it's malleable, right? I mean, that would be a logical statement, right? And then suddenly I say things like that and people are like, oh, you're homophobe. I'm like, transphobe. I'm like, no, I'm just using the term malleable. It was your term. I'm just applying it logically. If it's malleable, it must mean it's changeable. Therefore, you could stop being trans or start being trans because it's malleable, right? So is it immalleable or malleable? You tell me. And it's like where we run into logical circles and then people call me names. It's very frustrating. Yeah, you know? But yeah, hit me up on Discord, whoever random guy is. You can hit me up on Nick's Discord. I'm just at Uncivil Law. I'm sure you can find me. Just type me at Uncivil Law. I'll be happy to talk to you. It'll be fun. What does it mean to be a woman? Is not a question I was expecting. Hey, I ask questions that I think are interesting, right? Feelings cannot be squared legally with oppression. Fair enough. Love is like morality, is relative to the person experiencing. I don't know that I believe in moral relativism either. Just FYI. If it has to be 5 years ago, it'd be terrible about the pronoun thing, yeah. If it's malleable, conversion therapy could work. Yeah, well, not necessarily it would work, but it could work. It's at least hypothetically conceivable that it could work, right? Maybe we haven't figured out the way to do it yet, but if it's malleable, we should be able to figure it out. It's just a problem yet to be solved. So maybe we just need to work on it harder. Gender is separate from sex, but it's not always aligned to a person's gender. Isn't malleable per se. I don't know 100% what that means, but okay. Is it not true that morals are relative to each individual? No, I don't think moral relativism is. I don't really believe in moral relativism. No. It depends a little bit what you mean by moral relativism, but I don't think it depends a little bit what you mean by moral relativism. Because what is moral can change in a situation, but that doesn't mean that it's relative because it would be consistently changed in a way. Let me say if I can say this in a way that doesn't make it sound like I'm making massive contradictions. Let me say, like, it would be like me saying the directions to your house are not the directions to your house are not relative. That would be like the equivalent. Now, in one sense, it is relative because the directions to your house will change depending on where you are when you start. But given that point, they're not relative. So they're only relative in so much as they change based on where you are, but they change in a consistent way based on where you are, if that makes any sense. So what is moral is not relative in sort of like it changes from person to person, but it would change from situation to situation in a way that is consistent and could be measured objectively. So if that made sense, then that's sort of what I think. Like, is it moral for you to do X? It might be. It depends. Which is kind of like saying, is it legal to do X? It might depend. So yeah, is it moral? But it would flow from a moral logic. Like, so law flows from a law logic, at least hypothetically. So you can hypothetically like logic the way through law, which is one of the reasons I like law very much, because you can logic your way through it most of the time. So if you ask me if something is legal or not, it might depend, but it depends on situations. And then once I know those situations, the answer is determinable. So it's not relative in that sense. It's relative to one sense, but not another. So I think morals work the same way. You can go through a moral logic, and then the answer to is this moral might depend, but it would depend in a way that's predictable, or at least it was uniformly answerable based on the predicates. So I don't think morality is relative in that changes from person to person. It changes in a way that's from situation to situation in a way that's consistent. Like directions, if that makes any sense at all. And if not, I don't blame you, because it's not the best analogy, but yeah. It might be it depends is relativism. It depends on what you mean by relativism. It depends on what you mean by relativism. It depends is relativistic. Well, it depends on what you mean by relativist. No, it doesn't depend. It's just, or that's not the way I use relativistic. To say something is relativistic, I think implies it's open to each person individually. I don't think that is true, nor do I think it's true about law. I think it is. It depends on the facts. There's a good way to put it. The morality is consistent, the facts are not. How about that? Yeah, the morality is consistent and the facts are not. Like directions to your house, right? The directions to your house are consistent. The facts are not consistent. So as the facts change, we'll give you different directions, but they were always the same to start. They were the same in the Platonic universe from the start. So given it would always have been the same every time. So they're not relativistic in that sense. So yeah, anyways. Yeah. So that's kind of what I think. I think there is such a thing as an objective morality. Yes, I think you can do a moral logic. I think you can use a moral logic to come to an objective morality. Yes. So I think that you can use logic in morals and have a moral logic, right? And then you have a situation, and then you can answer situations like that. All right, so I've reached the end of the chat as best as I can, so I'm going to sign off. I hope you enjoyed this time. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A, and thank you so much for your extremely generous super chats. This was an extremely generous super chat day today, and I didn't really expect so many generous super chats, so I'm not really sure what in particular I did today to earn so many of your super chats. But whatever I did, I am eminently thankful, because it helps my channel grow, and I am hopeful this channel will grow enough that I can turn this into a true full-time gig. I'm looking forward to not doing my job anymore, to be quite honest. I need to leave. I've been doing it for 13 years, and I'm completely burned out. And I need to stop. And this YouTube thing I really, really enjoy. So I'm really hopeful this will take off. And when I see the super chats like I'm seeing today, it makes me think that, yeah, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible. We're heading in a direction that's like, maybe this could be a thing. So I don't know what it is exactly I did to earn so many super chats that I did today, but whatever it is, from me to you, truly thankful. I'm grateful and thankful for every one of you who is making this channel grow and making it possible. It really inspires me to keep going. I've been doing this really seriously for about a year, maybe a little bit more than that. I have to double check. I've had the channel for longer than that. But doing it really, and I've done some intermittent things, but really seriously been doing it 12 months, maybe 14, maybe a little bit more, something like that. And we've made some progress, and it makes me feel like, we might be heading somewhere. And one of the other real nice things about it has also been the friendships I've made with many of you and with other YouTubers, including Nick, including Leonard, including Nate, and hopefully Emily will be a friend, right? And these connections have been so meaningful to me, because you have no idea, or maybe you do, because you can sympathize with the problem, but maybe you don't know, or maybe you do, but maybe like what it means to be able to talk about this stuff. Because as you may be able to appreciate, I can't just walk into a random bar. I can't even talk about this with random lawyers sometimes. So to be able to actually talk about this with people who care and people who listen to me is so rewarding and so amazing. It's like a little bit hard to believe. It's like I finally found my community. I found my niche. I feel like I belong. It's nice. So I really, really thank you. I'm really, really thankful, and it's been really awesome to help me grow. And we'll just keep producing content. And I'm open to suggestions on ways to make it better. I'm thinking about getting a green screen. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, but ways to increase the, I've been putting on the suit and tie for a reason, putting on the hat for a reason, trying to be a little bit more serious, trying to increase the production quality. So I'm open to suggestions on ways to make it even better. Really, really want to do this, but it's been a lot. So I appreciate that. $5 from Newbie. Thank you. I appreciate it for your super chat. And yeah, I'm just going to sign off. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, please hit the like. For 99 cents, you too can become a member. Your super chats are appreciated. Until later, my friends. Cheers and goodbye.